Imran Khan joins us now live from Amman in Jordan because Israel has shut down Al Jazeera's operations in Israel. So we're reporting from outside the country. Imran, look, listening to these comments, I guess they show just how strained relations are right now between Egypt and Israel, right?
That's absolutely right. These comments come from President Sisi after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly said that the Rafah crossing could open, but Egypt didn't want to open it. Now, Egypt and Israel have a very complicated security relationship agreement. The beginnings of that were Camp David, which was set up in 1979. The accords that were signed at Camp David, when specifically talking about Rafah, meant that Rafah should be demilitarized and Palestinians should be in control of the Gaza side of the crossing. Well, clearly those two things are not happening. President Sisi is also saying effectively to the Israelis that you are in Gaza, you've created this mess. This isn't on us. But you also have to remember, the Egyptians are under a tremendous amount of domestic pressure as well. The war is incredibly unpopular amongst the Egyptian public. So that's something that Sisi will be looking at. Be looking at the voices of the streets that will be hearing any capitulation, any agreement with Israel is going to be incredibly unpopular. So that all plays into why we've heard these comments come out so far. But like I say, we haven't had any Israeli reaction so far, but it's likely that we're going to hear something that we've heard before, particularly from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who intends to deflect and blame the Egyptians for not letting in that humanitarian aid. Now, the Egyptians are actually fighting back, and it's seemingly those very angry words are the beginning of that fight back against these Israeli accusations.
Thanks to Imran Khan, following the situation from Amman in Jordan, and a reminder that he's there covering this story because Israel has banned Al Jazeera operating inside Israel. Now let's bring in Mouin Rabbani in Montreal. He's the Middle East analyst and co-editor of the online magazine Jadaliyya. Good to have you with us. First of all, Mouin, maybe it'd be useful to kind of step back a second and remind viewers of what the previous agreements say about who manages the Rafah crossing. Agreements like the 2005 Philadelphia Agreement.
Yes, it's the 2005 Agreement on Movement and Access, which was reached through, I believe, U.S. mediation after Israel disengaged from the Gaza Strip. And it specified that Palestinian Authority, in conjunction with European Union monitors, would be responsible for the Palestinian side of the crossing. This was basically an indirect way, I think, of maintaining Israeli control over that crossing. And then what happened in 2007, when Hamas seized power in the Gaza Strip, the Europeans took a unilateral decision to leave the Rafah crossing, and Egypt used that as a pretext to cooperate with Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip. I think what's happened now is, with Israel so brazenly taking over the Rafah crossing, they have exposed Egyptian complicity with Israeli policy towards the Gaza Strip beyond the point to which the Egyptian leadership can bear. And as Imran Khan was pointing out, it also has to do with Egyptian domestic opposition to the war in Gaza. There may well also be powerful forces within the Egyptian ruling establishment, and particularly the security establishment, who are not too happy at the way the Egyptian government has been cooperating with Israel during the past 8 months or so. And it's in that context that we need to see the Egyptian leadership now taking a more public and forceful position of opposition to what Israel is doing.
All right, so given what you're saying, how serious of a rift is really going on between Egypt and Israel then? Is this just maneuvering or posturing for domestic consumption in Egypt?
Well, there's certainly posturing involved, but I think it would be mistaken to see this as merely playing to the gallery for cosmetic purposes, if you will. It is a very serious issue inside Egypt, and that almost by definition makes it a serious issue for the Egyptian leadership. And there's a broader issue here rather than just the details of the agreements, which is Egypt has a central national security principle, which is that it will refuse to take responsibility for the Gaza Strip and the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip from Israel in the absence of a comprehensive political settlement. Israel has for years been trying to shove off the Gaza Strip to Egypt, and by closing their side of the border and saying that Egypt should be the one solely responsible for the entry of aid into the Gaza Strip, I think many in the Egyptian leadership see this as kind of a surreptitious initiative to try to have the Egyptians take responsibility for Gaza through yet another maneuver, and they're simply refusing this.
What position is the US taking? Because as you mentioned, the US brokered some of these agreements, whether we're talking about the Philadelphia or the Camp David.
Well, the U.S. is acting as the U.S. always does in such situations, namely that it's exercising pressure on Egypt to go along with Israel's demands, and it's using the dire humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip as a pretext. So once again, instead of placing pressure on those responsible for creating the crisis, namely the Israelis, it's taking the Israelis under its wing, protecting them, and putting pressure on Egypt to go along with Israeli demands. It's entirely what one would expect, given what we know about U.S. policy.
Mouin Rabbani, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.